The Steve Tandy era is here. It's taking place. It's happening. The first Squid Rugby video was about Steve Tandy's time at the Ospreys as he left. We've come full circle. He's now starting as Welsh coach. If you told me a few years ago that we were looking at Steve Tandy, Wales coach, it would have felt insane. And yet here we are, and it's actually quite exciting.
Are you telling me this is the last Squid Rugby video?
Well, I've had this thought before, right? The last Squid Rugby video, to go full circle, is Steve Tandy winning the World Cup with Wales.
Yes.
Leading Wales to a World Cup.
Yes.
And like, if that happens, then I might just end the channel.
Yeah.
And it all.
Or maybe,
I might just be done. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's as good as it's going to get.
Okay. We'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah.
I think it's safe
and
to
it
say.
is coming.
Yeah. Because this is the start. He's named his first team. Obviously playing against Argentina, which will be a really tough opposition.
Yes.
It's funny, we had a bit of a conversation about how we feel about this game off camera before. Yeah. And it's so easy to come, like, you reach one of the two extremes, isn't it? Of either, you were saying you think this will be Wales' best and most fired up performance of this campaign. And instinctively I'm kind of going, oh, but I could see this being the worst game of the campaign because, you know, there might be a few things that are a bit loose, a bit sloppy because it's the first game under a new regime. Things are going to go wrong. That's fine. That's a part of it. You've got to accept that. And then when you come to playing against the All Blacks and Springboks later on, there's always a chance that Wales do that thing that Wales do like no other rugby nation in the world, where they shouldn't be in the game whatsoever, but they come up really fired up. They don't win, obviously, but they come up really fired up and have this really spirited performance for 50 minutes and then just go, oh, lads, I'm knackered. How about you? Should we just clock off 20 minutes early? Yeah, all right. Running some tries, lads. Yeah.
Six Nations.
But we as Welsh fans are so used to that. Really spirited performances, but unfortunately not quite backed up on the scoreboard.
Scotland do a great line in them as well.
That is very true. But yeah, it's those two nations that are kind of famous for that. So it's quite funny to kind of think like it could land either of those two kind of extremes here. But I prefer your optimistic approach of it's a new regime, like what Steve Tandy said he's prioritised, which has clearly sunk through to the players. I saw Josh Adams saying this in an interview the other day, is he just wants the identity of what Wales are to be really visible to every fan this autumn.
Yeah. I think in some ways, Argentina are the perfect team to be playing first because it is a game Wales are expected to lose.
Yeah.
Right? No one is expecting Wales to win this. And yet you have a better chance of putting in a great performance against it than if they played the Springboks or All Blacks.
It's true.
It's not Australia, who have been similarly going for a bit of a struggle and are kind of like, they've almost been the barometer Wales are comparing themselves against, right? And Australia have been steadily like way ahead of them for some time, for over a year now. And that has been quite depressing. That adds an element in there. Six Nations has different pressure. You kind of don't want that. Japan is the big test this tour, right?
Yeah.
Wales need to win a game there. And in any tier 2 nation lower down than Japan, obviously who are tier 1, you know, Fiji, Georgia, etc., come with a pressure of if they lose that game, that is a terrible situation.
Yeah.
Anyone lower down, there's a lot of pressure on, and you kind of want Wales to establish themselves as the team they're going to be, rather than like, oh, let's go out and beat, you know, the USA having played Scotland a week earlier and lost by 85 points, right? You would instantly measure Wales of like, oh, Wales only beat them, 26-9 or whatever. That would be seen as like a differential there. You don't want that. You want them to play a style of rugby that they'll be used to playing and they're going to play longer term against everyone, rather than just like, oh, in the odd game against a weaker opposition, you could say, we'll play this style. The perfect opposition for this is Argentina, because there is less pressure on. If Wales beat them, it won't be the biggest upset in the world, but it will be an upset. But if Wales lose this game, then no one will be shocked. No one will be surprised.
Wales don't have to win this game in order for some of the public to be swung back, because the bar is so low. Obviously, they won the last game. Wales are on an unbeaten streak. Also, a whole week into the Autumn Internationals and Wales haven't lost a game yet, so that's great. But no, like, people don't expect much in terms of results of this Welsh team. And if Wales go down swinging hard, people will be pleased. I personally would be delighted with that. If Wales, as we mentioned before, when we did our video on like what a successful campaign looks like, if Wales look like they deserve to be on the same rugby pitch as Argentina, I will be happy with that. Yeah. And yet at the same time, like, I looked at Tandy's first team that he's named, and I quite like it.
I like it.
Dare I say?
I like it. I looked at the squad, as we said, a couple of videos now, and like, there's a clear sense of what he wants to do, right? And that was a problem with the Gatland regime, was one campaign he goes, after the World Cup, which obviously went well and everything, he was like short-term turnaround, whatever. After the World Cup, he comes back and he's like, cool, we're going to play attacking rugby. That goes terribly. Wales are shit at it. He goes, okay, we're going to play kick-heavy rugby. Wales are shit, they lose. we're going to bring in all the experienced heads. They're shit, they lose. They're going to blood the youngsters. They're shit, they lose, you know. And then he gets fired. And like every campaign had a different focus. It felt like he had no idea what he wanted him to do. Steve Tandy, you look at that and you're going like, cool, okay, I get it. I see what you want to build. I see what you're doing. And this team, having seen the 15 in the bench, yeah, I know exactly how the team's going to play. I know exactly what they're looking for. Obviously, we don't know the intricacies. I don't know if they're going to play 1-3-2-2 or whatever.
Sure.
But like, I know roughly they're probably going to kick a decent amount of the ball. They're going to defend incredibly aggressively. They're going to like try and outlast teams. It's going to be a team who are like high on attrition rather than necessarily like contact dominance, everything. But he has looked for a handful of carrying options, right? So you look at the changes he's made to the team from what you might have expected as the usual side. Reece Carey comes in for Nicky Smith. Gareth Thomas left out the team. Nicky and Gareth Thomas have been like the two Wales loose heads for a long time now.
Yeah,
going back
at
least 5-6 years.
Yeah.
Reece Carey has come in and started above them, which is a rarity, but he is the best ball carrier of the lot, right? You've got Nicky Smith, who's the best scrummager.
He's been on brilliant form at
jackal.
Saracens,
Yeah.
Reece Carey, and so physical around the park. Yeah. As you say, Nicky Smith is the better scrummager of the two, undoubtedly.
Nicky's better scrummager, he's got the jackal option.
Yeah.
Gartom, brilliant tackler, like defensively has the highest work rate. But Reece Carey is the best carrier, right? So he's clearly, you can tell exactly what he wants. He wants an extra ball carrier in the front row. So he's put him in. Kieran Azarati, likewise, is the best carrier of those tight heads available.
Yeah.
So he's put him in.
Dewi Lake, proper ball carrier, like an extra number 8.
Yeah.
And again, like another change that I really quite liked, and it's not a change, but you know what I mean, Alex Mann coming in at number 6 to complete that back row. Wainwright and Jack Morgan are arguably Wales' two best players in a way.
With Thomas.
And Thomas Williams, of course. But they are the two best, I guess, two best forwards probably, along with Dewi Lake in that Welsh pack. And it's difficult to know how to balance them. Obviously, Wainwright is a 6/8, probably slightly better as a number 8 because it gives him more opportunities to carry the ball and use that explosive speed he has off the base. But I really like Alex Mann. He's been playing really well for Cardiff as well. Is just a proper like defensive workhorse. Just gets around the park, chops absolutely everything. And even though his whole Wales career is basically fit into the losing streak era, but he's been playing well for Wales. Like, he's not really like let himself down at all.
There's something interesting. He came through as this youngster, right, who'd captained in the 20s, came into a Cardiff team, was like incredibly pumped up and excited to be there, and was great. And I think there's something in the fact that he came through, won Wales caps whilst he was still like, he looked incredibly young, right? He kind of had a baby face, he had acne, like, he looked like a teenager. And obviously, you know, he just turned 20, 21. He's now grown into himself, I think, and we're seeing a very different player. And I called him over the summer the proto-bastard, which is what he's kind of become. Like, he has become a proper niggly little prick, and I greatly enjoy watching him because he has that bit of bastardry about him.
Yeah, he clearly grew up watching Dan Lydiate play.
Yeah, but like, he is the nastiest back row I think Wales have produced since Ross Moriarty.
Yeah.
Like, he's in that mould of like, he will get in amongst it.
The nastiest back row Wales men have produced since Ross Moriarty.
Valid point. Yeah, but like, he seems like a prick.
Yes.
And like, he will shove people's face
Our
in the dirt.
prick.
Yeah, he will hold your scrum off, he'll stamp on someone's foot, and I like that energy.
I want
and
someone
clearly,
in the team who does that.
That's the kind of player Steve Tandy was in his day, right? Was he was very hard-nosed, he attacked the breakdown, he did the link play the expected of a 7 at the time, but like, he loved the dirty side of it, you know? He loved that kind of like trying to get away with things through cheating kind of deal.
That's it. If you want to pin one criticism on Jack Morgan as a 7, it's that he doesn't cheat that much.
Yeah.
That he's quite letter of the law with a breakdown, as much as an international 7 can be.
But his penalty count's unbelievably low for a back rower.
Yeah.
And it's because he doesn't chance his arm.
Yeah, you want somebody to partner him who's going to have that level of bastardry. It's why Warburton and Lydiate work so well together. Because the two of them would kind of fluctuate in how much they push the laws. Tipperick likewise.
Yeah. And so I really like Mann's selection.
Yeah.
He also was superb in Japan.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of selections in here. There's Alex Mann and there's Ben Thomas in at 12, who are both players who you might have expected to lose their place for another player coming back from injury or such, but instead have kept it, right? Joe Hawkins is back available, there having been a whole like crisis around him going off to Exeter, having a torrid time and coming back. He is not parachuted straight back in. Ben Thomas has held on to the ship. Yeah. And I quite like him going, okay, you know, I'm inheriting a team here. I'm going to let these two guys who were first choice before, Blair Murray likewise a fullback, and kind of give them a go and say, can you perform in these positions? Tom Rogers also fits that on the wing, where he starts over Lewis Rees-Zammit.
Tom Rogers hasn't played badly, you know, and a lot of people would have been confused. Granted, I was quite surprised to see Tom Rogers starting over Lewis Rees-Zammit.
I like it though. I'm for it.
As you say, like all of these players, Ben Thomas in particular, it's like, you know, as much as you think there might be a better player than them, the shirt is currently theirs.
Yeah.
Give them a chance to either play well or play badly, and then you can change them in a future week. And this is only game one of God knows how many for Steve Tandy.
They're all people who put in individual good performances in losing teams.
Yeah.
And there's some element of like, look, I don't look at Tom Rogers and see, the next Jason Colby. I don't look at Ben Thomas and particularly see like a standout. I don't see Matt Gitto, right?
Yeah.
But like, I still think there's a chance that those players can develop into something more, something better.
Absolutely.
And I think it's worth giving them that shot and doing that first up and being like, no, go on, show me you want the shirt.
Yeah.
I really, really like. I like it. It's a team that makes sense. There is the other big selection, though, that we should talk about, which is Steve Tandy said before this campaign, before he picked this team, that he was very clear he would be open if form or something else dictated it, and he needed to change on this, but he wanted to get in early, pick his 10 and stick with them going forward to the World Cup and build the entire team around a 10. And so he has gone with this man. The limited edition Dan Edwards trading card the Ospreys gave out briefly. Here he is. He's going to take pride of place just here. And he has been playing very well for 2 straight years. Came in, his debut against the Scarlets, scored the bonus point try at the end on his first game of professional rugby. And from there, has basically been a duck to water,
Yeah.
Like the following week started against Zebre, Benetton, and picked up an injury early on just from like a standard big tackle and kind of like needed that game to kind of acclimatise, right? Because like clearly struggled with physicality. Inside a month or so, he basically established himself as first choice. By that Christmas, around that Christmas, he established himself as the first choice 10. And from there, has pretty much never looked back and continued building and building and building, whilst always feeling like the same player.
So Dan Edwards, his international career so far, he got a couple of games in the Six Nations off the bench and was broadly okay, but didn't really get much chance to do much because he was in an extremely backpedaling Wales team, and it's very hard as a 10 to get something going there. Then came off the bench in the first test against Japan and started in the second one. In the second one, he scored the winning try and got player of the match, and Wales won their first game in a long time. If you don't know Dan Edwards, if you've not seen much of him play,
you've not watched the channel in 2 years.
Yes, indeed. He is a young, cheeky dude at 10, young guy, really exuberant and confident. I love watching him because he very clearly, his whole priority in terms of playing rugby is to enjoy himself.
Yeah.
That's clearly his number one thing on his hit list all the time. And he's not quite the Finn Russell level of taking the piss and it just being a game where he's just pissing about in the park with his mates. It's not quite that level. He's, switched on. Obviously, he's nowhere near the heights of a young Finn Russell, certainly yet, not to make the comparison. But he clearly just wants to enjoy himself and chuck the ball about and try things.
Yeah, because he's called Dan and from the valleys around Swansea and has come through the Ospreys as a teenager, he is getting compared to Dan Bigger a lot.
Yeah.
Right? And he's an excellent goal kicker, but they are very different players. But I also think there is a little bit of Dan Bigger meets Finn Russell in him.
Yeah, I get it.
Of to make 2 very mainstream kind of comparisons rather than comparing whatever. But I greatly enjoy him because, as you say, he is someone who every time he makes a mistake, he shakes it off instantly.
Yeah.
And he just forgets about it and moves on and deals with the next thing. But he also loves to take control of a game.
Yeah.
He loves to feel a game kind of under his thumb. And I think he's needed a chance to challenge him to go up a gear for a year or so now. And obviously he took over his first choice of the Ospreys, did a great job, and has had a few performances against teams like Glasgow where he has been superb. That's happened in odd games, big Welsh derbies and so on. But because, the Ospreys under him did qualify for the Champions Cup, then the Sharks won the Challenge Cup, meaning they ended in the Challenge Cup again. And then the following year they missed out on the playoffs through, a number of factors. But he hasn't had that chance to take the step up, right? And what he needs as a young player is to play at another higher level. And normally you'd want that to be Champions Cup before you're going into starting for your country, or at least having more time coming off the bench. But he doesn't have that luxury, right? Wales don't have that luxury to bring him through. He is the best 10 we have available, so he starts.
Yeah.
And I think this is kind of the challenge he needs. And when you look at the way that he took to both under 20s level, where initially he looked fine, he looked okay. And by the end of that year, right, having first game of the Six Nations, he looked okay. By the end of that campaign, you were like, oh, actually, there's something here. By that World Cup, he was the stand-up player. He was Wales' best player at that Junior World Cup that summer. So he's someone that improves incredibly quickly, takes to new challenges, and I think he's needed this next step up for quite a while. And
the time's right.
I think the time's right.
Yeah.
I think the time is right for him to be the starting 10. And with a new coach going, I want to back a 10 here, right? it feels like the handover to the start of the Dan Edwards era, right?
Yeah.
It's something that Welsh rugby have been very guilty of, is almost assigning eras by the fly half.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So we've had like
The bigger era, the Priestland era, the Jones era,
the
Jenkins
era before that.
Yeah.
You keep Jiffy era, and you keep going backwards, right? And it feels like if Dan Edwards is the next era, this feels like the right game to start.
Yes, agreed, 100%, because he's kind of the personification of that mantra around Wales. We need to see what the style of play is.
Yeah.
And if he plays well and plays his own game and expresses himself, whatever his own game looks like, we don't know what that looks like in a Wales jersey yet. We don't have enough tape yet. Then that's brilliant. It's his first game at the Principality for Wales. He's playing alongside a low-key modern Welsh great and British and Irish Lion in Thomas Williams at 9. It's a brilliant opportunity for him. But of course, looking at the opposition, they will have a pack who will hunt. They will smell blood when they've got a young 10, his first home start for Wales. We have to go after him.
I think that comes a bit to Ben Thomas as well, takes a little bit of pressure off as someone who has a bit more experience than that. 12 channel, used to playing international rugby, Joe Hawkins will be thrown in. Dan Eds also plays his best rugby whiffing of a distributor alongside him, whiffing of a playmaker. Jack Walsh normally at fullback for the Ospreys, who is a 10 by trade. So there's a little opportunity there. I think you're right to look at the opposition because this is a very strong Argentine team. We haven't really touched on them. Obviously, because the narrative is around Wales having a new coach in, a new era. But this Argentina team roll on from having been excellent over the last few years. Yes,
you look in particular at that loose forward section of them. And I don't just mean the back row. What I like about this is they have gone and shifted in Marcos Kramer into the second row as the biggest bully in that pack.
They've got 5 back rowers.
Yeah.
In their pack, right? Petty plays flanker for Bordeaux mostly. So
you're
looking at 5 flankers.
Petty, who's an incredibly he's an athletic kind of player. He's really agile. As you say, Kramer's the bully. He's there to just eat people up. And then you're looking at Pablo Matera, Juan Martin Gonzalez as your flankers, who are both rapid and brutal. And Joaquin Oviedo at 8, who has been one of the Pumas' form players for about 18 months now.
Yeah. I think Oviedo's quietly been one of the best players in the world this year.
Yeah.
He's been superb every single chance.
Doesn't make mistakes. No. Always moves forward in carries. And his tackle count is through the roof.
Hits lines like few other players. Is a little bit of like that lob A role that they've missed for the last few years.
Yeah.
And Kramer, I think we take for granted an awful lot because I think possibly because we don't see him interviewed afterwards, right? He's a sort of player who, if he was English, they would stick him on mic and he'd be like, "I'm bloody shattered, mate." Except instead he's in Spanish, where he's going, "Sí, mi shattered," which I assume I failed GCSE Spanish if that wasn't evident. But he gets through literally more tackles than any other player on the planet.
Yeah.
He was top tackle in the World Cup just gone. He also, I think, was second for breakdowns hit as well. He is the hardest worker without the ball in the world.
Yeah.
Right? And you're then looking at he is opposite, or he's not opposite, but he's playing against Jack Morgan, who is the overall attack defence alongside Caelan Doris. They're the number 1 and 2. And they've gone back and forward over the last couple of years. Hardest workers with and without the ball.
Impacts, physical impacts per minute.
Purely without the ball, right? And I will count that as attacking rucks, right?
Yeah.
Rather than he's a good carrier, Kramer, underrated carrier.
Yeah.
But one of the best on either side of the breakdown, and particularly at just cleaning out.
Yeah.
But also one of the best tacklers in the world and gets through more work than anyone else imaginable.
One thing I love about Marcus Kramer, clearly his least favourite part of rugby is the ball.
Yeah. He hates that there's a ball.
He hates that there's a ball. He just loves hitting people.
Yeah. He wish everyone just did that, but there was no egg involved.
Yeah. In terms of what Argentina are going to really target to win this game, first and foremost, the set piece generally, but more to the point, the scrum.
Yes.
Wales will have a decent line out, you'd think, because they've got Adam Beard and David Jenkins in there, both very good line out forwards. Granted, they're going to probably send the majority of it through that rather than going much to the back row.
Yeah.
But again, they've got enough to survive.
Yeah. Man can jump as well.
Yeah. But they've got enough to survive. It's not going to be a bad line out as long as those two stay on the pitch, kind of thing. As much as Freddie Thomas is on the bench, and again, is a very good operator. But yeah, from an Argentina perspective, that scrum you're really going after.
Yes.
Rhys Carey is in a bit of a litmus test era scrum-wise, isn't he? Having previously been hooked off before half-time by Wayne Pivac in one of his last game for Wales, really, against Ireland. Obviously, Kieran Atarati playing at tight head is not known as much for scrummaging, as you say, he's more of a ball carrier. And as well as that, you look at the props that they've got on the bench. You look at Thomas Garjo's on the bench for Argentina. But again, that front 5 are going to really go after the scrum there. And not only that, you have to then look at the kicking game. How they're going to set up up these positions to get set pieces in the Welsh half. They have, at 9, Simon Benitez Cruz,
Yes.
who I've been so impressed with all year long. Got a huge boot on him. Clearly he's just like beyond his years in terms of just knowledge of how to feel out a game and manage it. As I say, his kicking game is utterly outstanding for a guy with still less than 10 caps at this point. So, yeah, he's been utterly outstanding all year.
He's a proper breakthrough player of the year contender.
Yeah.
Quietly, and no one's really paying attention to him, but he's been superb. The way he's able to both, excellent kicking game, but so good at injecting pace into a game. And the sort of player I imagine is probably like almost best used as a Tate McDermott style impact sub, but has really taken that 9 shirt, right?
Yeah.
Given the chance, he has really taken his shot.
Yeah.
And then you compare how he played to, Gonzalo Garcia, who I rate enormously highly, but perhaps didn't have the best rugby championship. And then, Benitez Cruz has really taken his chance now. He's been given a shot at that jersey.
With Majano on the bench as well, who looks really, really promising.
Yeah, I like the look
as
of
well.
him. Yeah.
They, of course, partnered him with Prisciliante, Geronimo Prisciliante at number 10, which is an interesting call. Well, I say interesting call. They had a choice between either Prisciliante or move in somebody like a Juan Cruz Melia or a Santi Carreras, with the unfortunate injury to Thomas Albanos, who has been so entertaining for the last 12 months.
Felipe Contepomi said a few weeks ago that we need to use Thomas Albanos' injury as a chance to build more depth in that position, because they are spot on. And this has been a problem with Argentina going back generations, right? Is they will build their entire team around a 10. And if that 10 gets injured, they're screwed.
Again,
right?
The Sanchez era, the Contepomi era, the Hernandez era, the Porter era.
There is almost no Argentina team who has more than 2 10 options in that position.
Yeah.
It's almost always been the case with Puma
and
teams.
if there's a second one, they're in the starting teams in a different position.
Yeah.
Playing 12 or 15 instead.
And that's not to, rule out the proud history of I've gone blank on his name.
Federico Todeschini.
Federico Todeschini, thank you.
How did I know
Federico
that?
Todeschini.
Or Benjamin Oda Pagetta.
Benjamin Oda Pagetta, I was also about to come on to. There's plenty of these players who've floated around and picked up the odd cap here and there, right? But they're rarely used off the bench as change it up options. They're normally brought into the squad because we have no one else.
Yeah.
Right? And
remember Ignacio Mieres? Oh, what a player.
Good player. Ignacio Mieres. He was the other one I was trying to think of.
Yeah, good player. Sorry, carry on.
I mean, good player. Yeah.
Yeah, I got distracted.
Key part of that Exeter team when they first got promoted.
Yeah.
And he was like, I will kick the lever off it. And thank you, Nacho.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nacho. Thank you. We didn't ask you to, but thank you. And they need that beneath Albanos. Albanos has really come in and taken that shirt. And it's meant that Carreras can now focus on being a fullback and winger, which are his 2 best positions.
Yeah.
He became a good 10 over his run there. At first, he was not.
Nope.
And he developed into that. But you want him a fullback.
He's a good 10 because he's a good rugby player. He's a world-class rugby player, frankly. So you could put him in any position, he'd be all right. But same with Juan Cruz Melia. You know, he's playing every position in that back line for Toulouse. He's literally played everywhere other than 9 in that back line. And the thing is, they like to do that. They like to swap around their backs to keep them all, keep their skill sets all fresh or whatever.
The same back line as played against South Africa at Twickenham when they lost by 2 points. And obviously, there's a strong Springbok team, much stronger than this Welsh team. So you'd expect they will have enough in them, right? They look dangerous repeatedly throughout that game.
Yeah.
And, throughout the entire year, right? Even in the games where they've slipped up and they've not been as good because they're still Argentina, right? Even though this team is becoming much more consistent, they are still in the process of getting rid of those games.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that, it's been a big problem for Argentina is Wales and Scotland are often those games where they slip up.
Yeah.
Teams that they should beat, even when they are significantly better, and they haven't. And they really should beat this Welsh team.
Yes.
And if they lose, it then becomes a grace that you've got to mention at the end of the year. Even if Germany had a very good year where they beat the Lions, they beat New Zealand, they almost beat the Springboks. They've had this pretty solid year. And yet, if they lose to Wales, you've got to go, but they're still doing it. But they're still having one game where they really shot the bed against the Springboks. But they had one game where they didn't really, much less competitive against New Zealand.
Yeah.
And they lost against Wales.
They don't want to blot there, do they?
No. Their biggest work on for this World Cup cycle under Contepomi is consistency.
Consistency, 100%.
Their ceiling of the best performance they can put in has always been exceptional.
Yeah.
And it has back for almost 20 years. Over 20 years now.
Yeah.
In some ways, you can go back to the 80s with that, right? And the Hugo Porter era, as you mentioned earlier. But what they need to be doing now is building that consistency that's never been there. And this feels like a huge game for them to just show that they're not going to slip up, they're not going to let up.
Yeah.
If I was Argentina, What I would want out of this game is to win by 20 points or more.
Yeah, that's what Contepomi's got to be putting that marker down. Is like, we're going to hammer them.
Yeah.
We're going to look like exactly the same as New Zealand and South Africa come out of this autumn. That is going to be their goal. And as you say, and giving the keys to Prisciliante and going, right, you've got 14 top-class proven players around you, and you're one of them. You're going to fit in with those. And just quickly before we finish, the glue in this Argentine team, arguably the best player, certainly the best back, comes in the form of Santi Chocobares, and then moulding around him. And what I think is fascinating is, with most centres, with like a Lucio Cinti or a Matthias Moroni who's played with him in the past, he's the crash ball centre. However, at the moment, he's playing alongside Justo Picardo, who is a brute, who is a huge unit, gets over the gain line. Yeah,
he's a sentient breeze block.
And so in that centre partnership, Santi Chocobares, because he's such a good player, he's a world-class centre, he's the distributor there.
Yeah.
And we saw that against South Africa for that Delgi try, where they played off Chocobares with Prisciliante out the back and then spreading it wide off that. That's going to be a weapon they're going to use all the time. Against those two Welsh centres, it's how tight can we get them to defend? Because when they've got that double threat of carriers in that midfield, who are both ball players as well, that is super exciting from an Argentine perspective.
And if you think about that Welsh defence they're facing, right, those centres have leaked a lot of tries over the last few years.
Yeah.
Dan Eds is a really good defender because he's not the best tackler, but like he's really aggressive and he'll just fly up and try and get in your face, right?
Yeah.
He'll like really throw himself into every tackle. But there's a real chance if Argentina can get on top, and a lot of it will come off first phase, I think is a really important phase. We don't really talk much about the rugby itself, but like I think Argentina, if they can control the first phase, they'll probably get on top.
Yeah.
I imagine the Steve Tandy defence, from what we're looking at so far, will be a containment defence rather than aggressive flying up blitz defence. So Argentina want to be controlling that first phase or two off scrum, off line-outs, and hence control the line-out scrum as well. And they can probably take control of the game.
Big time.
And that's basically what the game's going to come down to, is how well can Wales front up the first couple of phases.
Live in their half and then score off first phase or second, third phase.
Having two players who are capable of crash ball in those centre positions, really useful.
Yeah.
Having a back row back three rather, that dangerous, really useful.
Yeah.
Having 5 back rowers you can throw any of them in. You could throw Petty into the carrier off a line out, right, and he'd do a good job.
Yeah.
You could lose literally any of them there. That's really useful. But even more useful is the rugby IQ you have in that 10-12 combination, and that you have across that back line. The fact that Corrales can come in and act there.
Him and Prisciliante will probably swap each other out, you know?
I've really enjoyed Corrales coming in as that like alternate playmaker over the last few months. I think it really suits his game, and he's better at it for having had a period as a 10.
Yeah.
Like he has developed a little bit there.
100%.
But Chocobares is one of the most intelligent rugby players in the world. I say I would have him and Tuipulotu as the 2 best 12s in the world by
Ikitau?
quite comfortably. Oh, yeah. I sort of think of Ikitau as a 13. Even
I know what you mean.
Playing 12 last year since.
Yeah. I'll let you off.
Yeah. Okay. But yeah, no. I expect the Pumas to win. I expect the Pumas to win by 2 scores at least. You know, I'd probably say the Pumas by like 12 to 17 points. But
the big question is, because we are Welsh fans, for our sins, do you expect that on Sunday evening you will feel depressed about the Welsh performance? Because that's what we need to.
I said this before, obviously still before the tournament, but like I said this a few weeks ago. For me, a good tournament or good campaign is I don't feel sorry for the players at the end.
Exactly.
And there's a chance that Dave Redding comes down onto the pitch and cuts a third of the players and just gets rid of them, or he cuts a player's arm off because they're like, we only have the capacity for 3 limbs here, and everyone just needs to get behind it and start supporting the fact that we only have 3 limbs, and that's how we need to go forward. That's possible. And look, if they cut up to Dave Redding in the coach's box or any of the other Welsh WE management, there's a chance I will still feel sorry for the players. But I am looking forward to this game quite a bit. I feel like I'm about to finally watch Wales play rugby again. And I feel like I haven't got the chance to do that for the last few years.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think I'm going to feel sorry for myself and all the players on Sunday evening. I could eat my words.